And we're live with what a ride with Michael Farris Smith, man. That was just heartening as all. Now and then, man, we hit a gem. This one's a gem.
For sure. There is so much richness in this discussion, and Michael is such a well-spoken, well-thought, and creative dude. There's times in life where you just get to do something really special, and this is one of them for sure. So sit back, make sure that you put your device away, give yourself, or if you're watching your device, put it on, do not disturb, and really allow yourself to sink in and really get the full story of what this man is up to and the amazing work that he's got. And then, of course, there's going to be lots of links to his work. His new book is Lay Your Armor Down. And that's a big part of this, but it's really about getting to know the man, and what a treat and what a fine man he is. So please support our charities, the Blast and the Compton Cowboys, and subscribe, and then drink Adrenochrome Cola.
Enjoy the ride.
Sis, hallo?
Blijven.
Bestuur zeker wegen dem.
Joh je iets niet, joh.
Two outlaws on the lam, taking the back roads through America.
You can't drink enough coffee for this show.
And now it's time for Monday Madness with the Moped Outlaws, Greg and Mark.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Moped Outlaws. Today we are really, really stoked to be taking a ride with Michael Farris Smith, who is an award-winning writer whose novels appeared in the Best of Year list with Esquire, NPR, Southern Living, Garden and Gun, Oprah Magazine, Book Riot, and numerous other outlets. He's been named an Indie Next at Barnes & Noble, Discover, and Amazon Best of the Month selections. I'm doing a terrible read here, but as a screenwriter, he scripted the feature film adaptations of his novels Desperation Road and The Fighter, titled for the screen as Rumble Through the Dark. Also with his band, MFS and the Smokes, he's written and released the record Lostville, which was produced by Grammy nominee Jimbo Mathis. He lives in Oxford, Mississippi with his wife and daughters. Please welcome Michael Farris Smith.
Thank you very much, Mark. Your reading skills they're good enough. You know?
Hey, yeah. Also, I want to throw in there that you did a single for your directorial debut.
Sure did. Yeah. We made a short film, Chasing Rabbits. And as I was driving home from shooting that, I was like, you know what would be cool is to write a song to go with it. And since it was my film, I decided to write a song. I had a great time recording it with the guys who did the music for the film.
That's awesome. It's a good single. I got to say, I listened to your album and I listened to that single. That single stood out for me. There was
cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that was after the album session, right?
Yeah, that was after the album. We recorded the album. I guess it was the end of last summer, and then we shot the film in November. So yeah, the single was the 1st of December.
So was that the same group of musicians as the album?
No, it actually was a different group. A friend of mine, Corey Chisel, who had a couple of great records back with Corey Chisel and the Wandering Sons, and he did the whole Nashville thing years ago. He wrote the title track for Desperation Road, and that's how I met him. He came to set. And we've been buddies, and he scores films too. So he lives in Appleton, Wisconsin. So I went up to Appleton to sit through the score of the film. And while I was there, we recorded the song. So it was a completely different set of musicians, you know. Although any band I play with, I call them all the Smokes. So there's Smokes in Wisconsin and Mississippi. They're all over the place.
All right. So the band is a changing group of members.
Yeah, we have a pretty solid core, but at this time in our lives, getting 5 or 6 dudes to agree to be in the same spot at the same time is a little bit daunting. I would say we have about a 75% success rate of having everybody there at the gig. So we have some moving parts. Oxford's cool in that there's a lot of musicians around here, and it's very communal. So, you know, if your bass player can't show up, you can hop on the horn and, you know, have another buddy pop in, you know. So
There's something about the immediacy of writing music and feeling its effects as compared to, say, writing a novel or writing a screenplay. The time between when the audience can experience it and the actual conception of it is a lot shorter.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I absolutely love about it. And that's what I really get out of it too. I mean, geez, man, I sit in a room alone by myself so much. You know, when you write a novel, and it takes me anywhere from like 7 to 12 months, depending on a lot of stuff. So, and I was a baseball player for like 14 years, so I'm very superstitious. So like, I don't talk about it when I'm writing. Like, I don't say like, hey, here's 100 pages. What do you think? Like, not even like my agent or editor. I turn the thing in when I feel like I'm very happy with where it is. So that's a long time for not just writing it, but not even talking about it to anybody. Same thing with a script. It's much more collaborative, but there's going to be 4 or 5 months where it's just me and nobody else. I love writing a song, calling up the dudes. Let's practice Thursday night. We practice. We got a gig in a week and a half, and you get to hear the songs come together, and you get to go to the bar and play it, and you get to see people react to it. And that is just, you cannot beat that.
Wow. And I read somewhere that one of the ways that you like to write your novels involves a certain cigar shop in your neighborhood.
Yeah,
I mean,
people can't see it on the podcast, but Spring Street Cigars, like, I'm sitting in my little studio space in downtown Oxford, but I walk out the door and literally right across the street is the cigar shop. And it's got a great big patio under some lovely trees. And, you know, when the weather's good, which is most of the time in Mississippi, I like to go sit under the trees over there and light up a cigar and work with it burning. And people leave me alone. You know, when they know when the laptop's out, they just walk around me and don't even like acknowledge me, which I'm very happy with. But there's something about that, just that having the cigar there with me, because it's going to take about an hour and a half to smoke. I work in about hour and a half spurts. I don't, you know, and then I get up and walk around or do whatever. So it's been a nice companion. I don't know how great a habit it is, but it's a good companion.
Well, isn't it true you don't really inhale the smoke of a cigar, right? It's more of a taste, or am I?
Yeah, that's right. You don't inhale. And I've actually done my homework on this because I was getting a little concerned. There was a big study done. Like, if you smoke 1 to 2 cigars a day over the course of, a long time, if you have never been like a cigarette smoker, like, your risk of getting lung cancer is only like 1% greater than just like any other person walking around. So I'm willing to roll the dice with those.
We're going to die someday, regardless.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Mark.
The process is a rhythm, like a ball player.
Yeah.
Those rituals help you have a sense of stability and a sense of flow and connection to life.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that we're dealing with in our culture with these things is that we're at this higher level of disruption and distraction.
Yeah.
And it really sounds like your home life and the way you write and the rituals you've built are antithetical to that. And I think that's reflected in the material that comes out. There's a kind of steadiness to it that people like. Is that correct? Is that how you see it?
Well, thank you. That's a very nice nice compliment. But yeah, one of the real challenges is to stay checked out when you're creating. I have to say the best part of my day is that moment when I'm sitting there and I've got my phone on Do Not Disturb, and I'm not going to get beeped with anything, and it's not going to ring, and I'm not going to feel the urge to look at, Instagram or what the hell ever, and it's just me alone, like, creating that. And that's it. And I feel like it's strange because those phones are supposed to bring the world to us, right? It's supposed to make you feel like more engaged. I suppose I feel way more engaged when I'm away from it. I feel way more in tune to the world around me. And I think for the imagination and for the repetition and the habit of working and creating and imagining, that those gadgets, man, they will mess you up. You know, they will mess you up. So
how do you deal with that with your daughters?
Oh shit. It's tough, man. It's like I have one of my daughters is 20 now.
Oh,
So
wow.
she's I think she got her first phone when she was 12. And Brooklyn, my youngest, is 14. She's never lived in a world where there wasn't like a cell phone.
Yeah.
And it's hard, man. I don't have any real answer for it. You know, we've checked them and monitored them and talked to them about what to do and what not to do, and like only give them so much screen time. And hopefully those are things that pay off as they move forward in their life and they're away from you. You know, like my 20 years old is away from me now. And I hope to God she's not sitting on her phone, you know, all the time when she could be doing a whole lot of other things.
Yeah. I think I'm got 3 kids, and there's this element of acceptance. Like, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to get kicked in the head. I cannot protect them from that. There's actually probably worse if I try to.
Yeah. That's a very good way to put it. And I think this is the battle that goes on in every parent's head, right? Like, how do you protect them versus how do you let them, you know, make their own mistakes? Because I was allowed to make a lot of mistakes, you know, and I've thought about that over the years. Like, you know, when you're giving them enough rope to hang themselves, right? And you know they're going to do it, and there's just not a damn thing you can do to stop it. Right.
Right.
And I can look back on my life, and I'm sure I can look at you two guys and see y'all have had your share of fun and mistakes too along the way. And but
We're outlaws, of course.
You gotta learn, yeah, you're outlaws, man. But you got to learn to bounce, and I think you got to be willing to let them bounce, you know. And hopefully it all works out in the end.
Now, have you noticed also that they have begun to mimic the creative side of you? Do you see times when either your daughters kind of go off on their little spot and create something that's their own? Does you see that too?
Yeah, they're both very creative animals. Not writers, thank God. I would discourage anybody from that.
It's a dying voice.
Yeah. But they both really love to draw. My oldest was a dancer for a while. It was really cool when we did the movie Rumble Through the Dark. She was 16, but she was an intern in the costume department.
Oh, nice.
She got to do that. She's into fashion design. Like, that's what she's doing now. She's doing an internship with a designer. So very creative. And my youngest too, she loves to sing, and she loves to draw. And so they do have that side too. I think they both enjoy exactly what I was talking about. And that's those moments of just being alone with your craft or just whatever you're doing. You're kind of away from, you know, everything else, which are very important moments. And my wife is the same way too. Her personality is geared toward like, I'm cool, just leave me alone, you know, for a while, you know. So they're both very creative. I'm not going to try to keep them from being creative as long as they don't come to me and say, Daddy, I think I want to try to write a novel. And I'll be like, I don't know, man.
That sounds like the actors that I hear talk about their kids are like, oh, don't do it. But here, like, I'm looking at you, you're a successful writer. You know, I imagine you wouldn't trade this for anything, right?
No, I mean, I wouldn't. It's such an ebb and flow, and it's such an up and down. Like, the doubt never goes away, you know. Like, I'll be quite honest. 2 days ago, my 8th novel is about to come out. I think there's a pretty decent chance we're about to start shooting my 3rd adaptation this September. And I was just ready to, like, 2 days ago, like, fold up my laptop, turn in the key to my studio, take all my books to the recycling bin, and just be done. Like, I don't know. It's just one of those moments which comes and goes. And then, like, today I'm sitting here going, as I was smoking my cigar and walking around, I was like, okay, I'm smoking a cigar, walking around. My 8th novel's coming out, getting ready to shoot 3rd adaptation. And I felt it was like a 180, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of that. And then I look back at the 10 years it took me from the time I started writing around the age 30 till the time my first book came out at age 40, and all the shit I went through with that, and just the doubt and the depression and all this hanging on you got to do, man. But you know, I did it. And like, if you'd have told me 15 years ago that this is where I would be 15 years from now, I would have taken it 1,000 times out of 1,000 times.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
And
so
so, but I wish you got to a point to where all that other stuff kind of faded away. It really doesn't, but I wouldn't be doing anything else,
So isn't there an element of just realizing for your daughters, that's probably going to be their scene too, no matter what they choose? They could be a neurosurgeon and there'll be that operation that went wrong and that haunts them for the next 20 years.
It's funny you say that, because I remember when my wife was pregnant with our first daughter, I was freaked out about becoming a dad, and I was doing some reading about it. And I remember I read across something one day. It's like, what's the best gift you can give your children? And the answer was perseverance.
Yeah.
And that really struck me doing what I was trying to do at that time. Like, I was still years away from when Presley was born. I was still 5 years away from having any success, having any yeses. But I think they have seen me through their life, like the things I was talking about. Like, even though you finish a novel, that's great. Well, you still got to keep going. And the next one's going to be a completely different thing, a completely different challenge. And quite frankly, just because you publish the first one doesn't mean the no's are over and the rejections are over. You still got fights to fight and battles to win and this and that and the other. And I think if nothing else, I hopefully have been a picture of perseverance to them.
I think that also shows itself in the fact that you're still present. You're still there.
Yeah.
Because
it's hard to break through, but I think it's, honest to God, I think it's harder to stay.
Yeah. But
Why? Why is that?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the book business and the publishing world. Everybody loves the hot debut, right? I'll have a very hard time getting review space for Lay Your Armor Down, because they're going to be writing reviews of a lot of hot debuts of people you'll never fucking hear from again. I can look back on every best of the year list I've been on. 80% of them you never see another book from. So, it's like, I don't know how to explain it. I really don't. But I think almost the further you go, it's almost the more willingness that world has to kind of like, okay, you're doing great. Let's set you over here. And let's see what else is coming along, whether it's sustainable or not, and that's one of the things that made me want to fold up everything a couple of days ago and throw in the garbage.
We're glad you didn't.
Yeah. And that kind of hits upon that cult of personality. Like, I'm thinking of the authors that are continually getting space, and it's more because they're personalities than authors.
Yeah, I mean, it's all a big algorithm,
Well, on some level, it's perseverance again. Like you had to persevere to get to the point where you had enough success to be asked to do more or be able to, bring more to the market. And then now you're at another layer, which maybe the next pinnacle for you is to have enough of that awareness, audience awareness, where people actually become, enamored of you enough that they are anticipating the next novel. Mm-hmm. Right. And that has its own set of challenges, too, because they're actually anticipating the thing you were,
right,
not the thing you're becoming. And as an artist, I'm sure that's just the death knell, is to try to create something for a place and time that you're not in. Right. Yeah. And I want to ask about
one of the things that kind of sticks in, you think about, too. But I will say this, like, I do think my frustrations with all of that and the book world and publishing industry and everything, like, I'm fortunate that I do have an audience, and I've also written the books that I've wanted to write without bowing to like convention or what I think the formula is. And I would never do that. And I think as each book goes along, the thing I'm probably most proud of is I've been willing to take chances and write the novel I wanted to write and let it rip, and whatever the hell happens. I've been fortunate to have an editor who goes along with me on that and like understands me and like really lets me flap my wings. And I think it would be a gross mistake for me to sit with the next one and say, okay, now I'm going to try to land, to 350,000 readers this crime fiction, law court driven girl on the bus, train in the window, whatever thing, that fits the algorithm. And
It'd be like Prince trying to write Southern rock music.
yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. I think, it's funny. I think Kurt Vonnegut said, all writers really want to be rock stars. And then all the musicians and actual rock stars I've gotten to know always say, yeah, well, every rock star really wants to write a novel too. So,
and you're doing both.
Yeah, I'm trying.
You're doing it. May I ask, what is the armor of the title?
God damn, that's a good question. I think, honestly, this kind of goes back to some things we've already talked about, like even with being a parent, like this willingness to let go and to trust the universe to kind of deliver you where you need to be, which is something I fight with all the time. I think a lot of people do, because it's a very difficult thing to just like lay your armor down and make your decisions and let go and just understand that, whether it be fate or I don't know what you call it, I'm going to be led and carried to that moment where I need to be. And, the characters in Lay Your Armor Down have some very, very difficult decisions to make. And I think it's the moment when they give in to believing they're doing the right thing when the novel really took another stride.
So just to bring people in a searing journey through Mississippi backroads and emotional wreckage, Lay Your Armor Down follows Burden and Keel, two broken men on a cryptic mission who discover a mysterious child in a church cellar. What unfolds is a raw and redemptive reckoning with the past, faith, and the lingering ghosts of violence. With echoes of No Country for Old Men and The Road, the novel blends the supernatural with the Southern literary tradition. So when you talk about the universe and you talk about faith, is there some kind of spiritual foundation that is part of your life, Michael?
Yes. And it has evolved quite a bit over my lifetime. My dad was a Southern Baptist preacher. So I grew up in little small town churches all across Mississippi growing up. My mom played the piano. My grandparents were all very church-going folks in the same type of little churches. From the time I was big enough to stand up without falling over, I'm singing in the choir. So it's very kind of a small town Baptist hellfire and brimstone upbringing, to be quite honest. But the thing that did for me, which, I mentioned earlier, I didn't start writing till I was about 29 or 30, but those were the first stories that I knew were the Bible stories. And those Bible stories are fascinating because they are full of things that could be real, could be supernatural. They're full of things like courage, failure, redemption, temptation, violence. And those are the stories that I knew, and quite frankly, I loved them. Like I remember when I was a kid, I had a Bible that was animated. So you would open up to Moses, crossing part in the Red Sea, and he's standing there with his arms wide open, and the sea is part. For a kid, like those visualizations and all, they're so like hard image driven too. I don't think it's any kind of surprise to me that when I did start writing, that the stories and novels that I tell, they kind of linger a little bit between the real and maybe a little bit supernatural, or like something's out there. We don't know quite what it is, but we know it's there type thing. And that my characters do go through a tremendous amount of trepidation and failure. And there's this clawing to stay alive, like clawing to make it and clawing to find connection. And there's a lot of, it's stark and it's isolated and it's bleak and it's a little bit otherworldly at times too, I think. And I think that really came from me knowing those Bible stories front to back and back to front as a child. And that was, I read what they handed me in school, but those were really the things that kind of soaked into me, and those themes and just those feelings and those visualizations, you know.
Carlos Santana once said at a concert that heaven is a decision. And I love that idea. And what I'm hearing is that with people and then also the characters in your book, we reach these moments of inflection where our faith is challenged and the opportunity presents ourselves to choose heaven. And part of the payment to get through, or the is to drop our falseness, drop our shields, drop our armor, and be open and be seeable. And does that something you can relate to?
Oh yeah. You know, I've had a roundabout way with religion, you know, organized religion, and people ask me, like, are you religious? And like in adulthood, my answer has been, I don't really consider myself religious anymore, but I do consider myself spiritual. And with that, to me, comes it kind of really turns things more inward for me, that using that phrasing, and more individual for me. And because of the things I, you know, learned and was taught, and then going out into the world and meeting other people and hearing other viewpoints and and reading and, you know, coming upon other ideas and this and that and other. I think it's been a journey, and I think it's supposed to be a journey. I don't think there are any answers. And quite frankly, the people who think they have it figured out are the ones I'm much more wary of, you know, because it's ludicrous to think that you have the answer. This is what God said, and this is like what the Bible says, and I know it specifically, and nobody else does. That's insane. That's completely, that's, well, it's insane. There's no.
When we come to these challenge points, we have a choice to make.
Right.
That, I think, is the key, is that moment of inflection.
Well, you know what, too, and like the greatest thing I take from a religious and spiritual standpoint, the thing I've been most affected by anything, is the Sermon on the Mount, and the way Jesus just talked about his spirituality very conversationally in front of a whole group of people, and he asked questions over and over, right? And I think that also makes its way into my work. This notion of I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know how the hell I'm going to get out of it, but I got to keep going, and I got to keep trying to figure out what's best until I get there. And that's not always easy, you know. That's not always easy.
It isn't. Especially, it seems like the volatility of our current day and age is extreme.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, even like we were talking about, like checking out from your phone and all that stuff, like that's a conscious decision you have to make to get yourself separated from all the shit flying around.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a very powerful thing because you have the power to do it. You know, I've read Marcus Aurelius a lot too, and the Stoics talk about it. You know, really, you can bitch and complain all you want, but you've got the power to change it, you know, if you want to, you know?
Yeah. Which kind of brings it to that inner reflection that truly the world changes when we change ourselves.
Yeah, that's very well said. You know, I mean, there's who was it? It's one of my favorite French philosophers, I think it was Andre Breton, who did a lot of work with shell shock victims in World War I. But he had this great quote. It said, let me get it right. Inside us are worlds. And I thought, what a powerful thing. Not inside us is a world, but inside us are worlds. So it's just like magnified, and it really kind of gives you the sense of, you know, what we do possess.
So I got this question that's been going this whole conversation. Am I correct that one of the main characters of your new book coming out has Alzheimer's?
Yes.
And I'm curious about the choice that you made with that character to have Alzheimer's.
Well, every one of my novels gets its seed planted from, I just get this image stuck in my head that I really can't get rid of. And if it goes on for weeks, I kind of know that's the person in the situation I want to sit down and follow and see what's going on with their life. There's no outline, there's no synopsis, there's no nothing. It's like you open up page one of any of them, and that was the moment when I thought that was the thing I was thinking. And I just started going with it. For some reason, the thing I could not get out of my mind that led to Lay Your Armor Down was the image of this old woman with dementia, very confused, who wanders out of her house in the country in the middle of the night, like she's pretty far advanced, and just walks off into the woods, with a sack under her arm of things she thinks she needs to take, because, we've heard stories of that before, people wandering off like they do. And,
oh yeah.
And so I just really started walking with that woman from her house and out through the woods. And for me, it worked as a writer because it offered tremendous possibility. First of all, you've got a character, and I can be kind of in her mind. And that dementia world is, again, back to that. What's real and what isn't? And what's imagined and where am I?
The world's inside.
The world's inside, correct, that she's carrying with her. And then you've got the woods in the middle of the night, which is pretty spooky, no matter who's doing it, right? And you've got her alone, very isolated. But then as a person, I had great empathy for her, too, right out of the gate. Like, I cared about her the first sentence. And I think, for me as a writer, if I don't love and really care about that character, all of them, then I'm not, if I can't love them, nobody else is going to. If I can't care about them, nobody else is going to. So I had a great sense of empathy, and I was worried about her, like on page one. And I don't know what more you can ask for in sitting down to write a novel than all those things, Right. Yeah, it was one of my favorite first chapters that I've written. I do believe in setting the world on fire right out of the gate. I think all of my novels do that pretty fairly, but I really loved walking with her in those first pages of Lay Your Armor Down.
Do you find that you also have a love for the characters in your stories that are nefarious and kind of evil of spirit?
Yeah, probably more so.
Right.
Yeah. Because, quite frankly, nobody's all good and nobody's all bad. We all know that, right?
Yeah.
And for me, one of the more powerful things to do in fiction is to create a bad guy or a bad gal that the audience at some point feels sympathy for. Those are my favorite characters to write. I think the more broken someone is, the more kind of unpredictable someone is, the more nefarious someone is, I think the more I enjoy going to that character every day just to see what the hell is going to happen, And like for Burdine in Lay Your Armor Down, he was a bad dude in the middle of the night when that novel started. By the time that novel was over, I was so in love with that guy, man. He was like the character who really, he's still a bad dude at the end, but he's also a lot of other things too. And he was the one I really couldn't wait to go to every day. And probably in each novel, I could tell you the character that surprised me the most because they're not really a good person, but they're the one you can't stop looking at.
I'm getting so many pictures of different characters like that in the various stories that I've experienced, and I don't really want to get into them because I think it'll distract us. But, one of the things that happens to a hard man like that is that his human aspect gets cracked open. And in this case, the context of finding a helpless child is part of that process for Burdine, right? Yeah. And how does that relate to emotional intelligence for men and men getting more access to the kinds of things that are part of how we express emotion and that lead us to a path to redemption?
Well, that's a wonderfully phrased question also. Did you just come up with that? Because it's really good.
Yeah.
I think for Burdine, which kind of I think will answer the question too, is he comes upon something that surprises him and makes him uncomfortable. He's out to do a job. He's told you'll know it when you see it. When he gets there and it's a little girl hidden in an abandoned cellar of a church, he's surprised and he's uncomfortable immediately. Pushes him out of his comfort zone, quite frankly. I think that's the answer. You know, I think we have to be willing to do things that are different. We have to be willing to think about things that are different. We have to be willing to, when we feel an emotion that's new or odd, I think the wrong thing to do is just shut it down and close it off. For me, when I'm writing a novel, when I start to feel a little uncomfortable, that's when I know I'm going down the right path with it, because I'm engaging with things I haven't engaged with before. You know, Mark Twain has this great quote about travel is a poison like to bigotry and intolerance, you know.
Yeah.
I'm summarizing it, but it's because you take yourself and you put yourself in other places and you meet other people and you are in things that are unfamiliar, but you try to understand them, try to embrace them, or do you just experience them, whether any of that other stuff happens or not? You have different experiences, you know. And I think the thing to do is, I mean, I don't think the key to living is to suck the whole world into your vacuum, right? I think the key to living is to like open your window and like look out into everything that's kind of around you, you know. And you take what you want from it or take what you can get from it. But I think just to shut things down and to block them off and put up a wall just because it's different than anything you've known or done before it's the antithesis of, I think, thought and life and love and whatever.
Do you think there's an element of, what's the word I'm looking for? What is it when you can take a substance and you change it into alchemy, an alchemization, like Southern Gothic, and you're talking about this dark forest and there's elements that initially are spooky, but if an individual walks into these environments, that an alchemization can happen, and there is an opening, a realization of light in these dark areas.
Yeah, and I think, I think for all the things that have been said, you know, about my work over time, about how dark it is and this and that and other, my answer is always like, but yeah, those little pockets of light shine very bright when they appear, you know, because of the darkness. And those are just the things that are interesting to me, you know. Those are the things that challenge me. And quite frankly, I'm changed after every novel because of that. Just the very thing you're talking about. Because I've spent a lot of time going through a story, or it usually comes through a character who challenges me to think a little differently.
Have you ever had an experience where you're writing and you need to take a break because it just got too overwhelming?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would say the biggest example of that was when I was The Fighter, writing The Fighter. There were days when I would get up and leave, and I would say, I cannot come back to this for about a week. Like, I just can't do it. Like, it was just taking so much out of me, but not to the point. And that was also like me knowing that doesn't mean you should change it, but you need to take a break from it and take a walk from it. Blackwood was similar. I mean, goddamn, Blackwood. I mean, I could not sleep for about probably 8 or 10 weeks. And during Blackwood, I had my only experience in my life with what you call sleep paralysis, you know, when you wake up in the middle of the night and you just
can't move.
You're awake and you can't move.
Yeah.
And I woke up in the middle of the night in the middle of Blackwood, and there's this very weird man in Blackwood that's sneaking through the kudzu and making weird things happen. And that was the thing that was just giving me nightmares. And I woke up And I had sleep paralysis, and I was laying there, and I was convinced that a hand was about to reach up from the end of the bed and grab my foot. Even when I kind of shook free of it and I could move, I would not move. I just laid there like it's.
How does your wife partner with you in this personal travel you're on?
I wish she was sitting here so you could.
You'd like to know yourself, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's very patient. Let's put it that way. She's also, I'll tell you this too. Being married to her and experiencing life with her has had an impact on my work as well, because she's a social worker.
Mm.
And like all social workers, she started out doing cases and going into homes. She's gone through her own darkness. And the things that we've talked about over the years, particularly in the early years of her career, I mean, that shit would keep you up at night too, because it's very real. And it's going on like right now somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I think that too had a lot to do with my willingness and to let things happen and to go down roads, I might not have otherwise gone down, or maybe more hesitantly gone down, just because I've been privy to some real nightmares, through her and what she works with and what she has experienced in people.
I wonder if there's an element for her that she can appreciate, that you can fictionalize these real elements of life and people can experience them in your books instead of in real life and gain lessons that they don't have.
She really does appreciate that. I mean, really, we've had those conversations. Like, for instance, in The Fighter, the one reason that book I had to get up and walk away from is because the central character, it was a foster child. And I didn't even tell her I was, starting with the kid. He's an adult, but in our flashbacks and stuff, we kind of realized what he came through and what he went through. And then when she finally saw it, when I was done with it, she says, I think you did that a tremendous amount of justice.
Wow. That's high praise.
Yeah, it was a wonderful, wonderful compliment to come from her.
When things get adapted and you get to start to witness the process of it coming to be a visualized art medium, how much participation did you get to have on The Fighter in bringing that to life? And what was it like for you to be like on the set with people like Mel Gibson and some of these other amazing artists? Like, how's that different? And does that inspire you to keep going?
First of all, it's very cool. And it does inspire me tremendously to be around a film crew and to be on a film set. I mean, they are such hardworking, creative, go-get-it people, what they do for their lives. I mean, it's really fascinating to watch. And also then, like, I love being around other artists, being around actors and talking to them and directors. And I mean, and the cinematographer, like, it's all fascinating to me. But I was fortunate to kind of go back to the first part of the question. I was fortunate with both Desperation Road and The Fighter that I got to write the adaptations, and that the directors in both films told me, we really want the novel on the screen. We're not looking to make any big changes, So that freed me up pretty good. But then they both wanted me to be on set and to be available, which, believe it or not, that's rare, even if it's an adaptation and it's
really rare.
Yeah, and I don't understand why it's rare, but like it is, right? So like being there on set, and like if you had to rewrite something on the fly, of course, like who else do you want to be there to do it but the person, right? So I can see how movies get really jacked up, film adaptations get really jacked up when they don't include the creator like that. But they made me feel like I was like part of the team. I was there sitting on set. I was sitting right by the directors on set. I was watching, all of it, talking to the actors, in each instance too. They told actors, like, look, if you got a question, like go talk to them. Feel free to talk to Michael about it. Feel free to ask them about it. So it's fantastic, and I mean, I'm a child of the 80s. I was 25 when Braveheart came out. For me to like be sitting on a porch with Mel Gibson and talking to him about what this scene, and him asking my permission if I can say this and say that, it was very, very surreal. very surreal, you know. But the professionalism and the talent of those actors is incredible. Aaron Eckhart, who played the lead in Rumble, the guy, he calls me one day. This is several days before shooting. He's like, "Hey, I want to come over and just read through the script with you." I'm like, "All right, shoot, sure, I'll meet you." And so he comes out, and we sat out on the sidewalk out in front of the little place I was renting, and I thought we were just going to pitch back and forth through his scenes. He has the script with it. He just hands it to me, 108 pages, and he goes, "All right, just go." And I just started reading, and he stood there, and he did the whole thing then, like all of it. Not like I know what the first week is. Like he read the whole script with me. He did it. I read it, back and forth with him. And we did that like 3 or 4 days, and I was just fascinated by the skill of that dude to take in so much at one time and process it. And like he would even say to me, like, "Well, that line's different than the line it is in the book. Why?" And I was like, "Is it? I don't remember." Like, that's pretty impressive that he'd read the novel a couple times and can tell the difference if the conversation had changed some. So it's just fascinating to me.
It is. It's amazing how much work goes into a creative endeavor by anyone.
Oh yeah, it really is, And quite frankly, too, I feel like I'm a very visual writer. And when reviews call my work like cinematic, I take that as great compliment. So being there on a movie set and like seeing it and watching it, but seeing it through other people's eyes too, like the director setting up a scene or what the costumers walk them out with, or just the way an actor says a line that is different from the way I've said it in my head for years, and they say it with a different inflection and different emphasis, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it does mean something different. It's really cool, especially if you're working with cool people.
That's awesome that you have that viewpoint of your own work, that you can watch it transform in another's hands and be appreciative of that.
Yeah. It's back to letting go, man. You gotta let go.
Lay your armor down.
Yeah, and you get to be back into that more immediacy of collaborative work again, like coming out of your 7-month sequestration, and then it goes and it becomes its own child. The work becomes its own child, and then it comes back to you and it brings you friends and says, "Hey, I want you to meet these friends that found me along the way," and now you're going to have a conversation with those folks and bring it back around. Would you say
that's very well said? I mean, I hate to interrupt you. That's very well said, because quite honestly, by the time I get done writing a novel, and then you sit around and you wait about a year before it comes out. Like I've got to do book events next week when it comes out. I've been thumbing through it this week just to make sure I'd like remember what's going on, and like all the characters' names, right? Make sure I've got it right. So when you get on a film set, and I don't want to say like you lose your enthusiasm for it, but like I've written the novel and it waited around, it's coming out. Like I kind of know, I've been with it for a while, but you get to like a film set and it's like the thing gets a rebirth, and everybody walking up to you is fresh to it and they're excited about it, and they're asking you about it. It really is it's like a resurrection, and it also can be very embarrassing because even though I've written the script, they'll ask me stuff about it. I can't think of the answer. Like, I don't know, man. Like, go ask the director. I forgot.
Well, you're getting ready to go out on this book tour, and you're starting the 27th in your hometown there.
Correct.
And going on the road. And looking at this calendar, like it's a fair amount of time on the road, which is sort of like what musicians do. Yeah. What are the things about book tours that are similar in terms of working with the film crew and collaborating with people that come to see you? Do you take your guitar and do a song or two, or how do you relate to your book tour approach?
Well, this time we are actually going to do some fun things with it. This will be the first time where, all the events I'm either like going to play some music to, or we're going to screen the short film. So I think it'll be fun. And I think bookstores and venues really appreciate doing a book event in a little bit different way. I know I'm looking forward to it in that way. But kind of, back to the question, like for me, the favorite part of it is like going out to these stores and meeting the booksellers. Booksellers are really great breed of people. They're just easy to get along with, and they read all the time. So they got all these thoughts in their noggin bouncing around. And when they like your work and like want to hang out with you and have a drink with you, invite you to the store, like that's really, for me, it's very rewarding, because you can forget sitting in the room alone. There are people out there who give a damn about what you're doing, and you go out on book tour and you're reminded of that, and the further away from home you get, I think the little more rewarding it becomes. When I'm, I'll be in Boston for an event and I'll sign books there, and it'll be a little strange to me, quite honestly. It'll be one of those moments where people a long way away from Oxford, Mississippi are reading my work, and it's a very cool feeling. And like going to play music in Pineville, Kentucky, and then having a book table there, like those are things that I'll try to remember next time I'm sitting in this room and wanting to pack up, and take a long walk.
Do you have memorabilia? Like, do you have posters from book events or photos of you that you hang in your writing room?
I do have some of that stuff. Like, not so much. I mean, some really kind of special stuff. Like, I've got a poster over here from a festival in France I was invited to a couple of years ago, and I think I have the short film poster back there. But even at home, I keep everything put up pretty much, because I feel like if I stare at everything I've done, then I'm not going to get to what I'm going to do next. So I don't really like to have pictures of myself and my books stacked up on the table and this and that and the other. I kind of like to, keep my mind leaning in the forward direction.
With Chasing Rabbit, is that opening a door to you doing more features and getting more into the film industry?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, just recently I did get asked to direct a film that'll be shot in Kentucky.
Is that the one in September?
No, it's the one in September. Will be directed by the guys who did Rumble Through the Dark.
Okay, very
Philip
cool.
Brothers. No, this guy who's read all my work, and he's done a couple of short films, and sent them to me. He's a good writer. He asked to see Chasing Rabbits, and I sent him the link. And about a week later, he emailed me. He goes, "Well, look, man, I'm putting a feature together, and I want to know if you'd be interested in directing it." And like, absolutely, because I really did like directing, and I knew I would from being on film set and watching other people do it.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy we're doing Blackwood in September, so I get another month of film count before I go and do a feature on my own. I think I think there's a lot of parallels between being a novelist and being a director, because when I'm sitting here, I am the camera, I'm the eye of it all. I'm making all the decisions. I know who's saying what. I know what I'm showing the reader what I want them to see. I'm taking them to the places I want to take them. And I think there's a lot of that really rings true to being a director as well. Like, how can we make this look as good and as sharp and direct and as cool and interesting as we can, which is quite frankly the way I think about things a lot in writing sentences. So I'm really excited to do it, and I do hope it's something I would like to do in the future.
All right, I hope it opens up.
Me too.
And as you sort of peek over the horizon into 2026 and the end of 2025, do you have clarity about what's next for you?
I don't. Yeah, quite frankly, if we can get this movie made in September, indie film world is so jacked up right now. The miracle of getting one made, if I can relive that miracle again, I'll be very happy. So that's kind of where my eyes are. And then I guess for 26, though, directing the film, because it would be the first next year. But I will say that I don't know what this means. I guess it's because I have been doing music and I've, got the film stuff going on. This is the first time I've had a book come out when I wasn't started on the next book already. I don't know what that means, if it means anything at all. I think what it really means is I'm going to walk around and smoke cigars and let my mind relent a little bit, because typically that's when the next idea arrives, is when you're not thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to
And
create
quite
that
frankly,
space.
I've also learned if I try to look more than like 5 days ahead, it's pointless, right?
You know, one of the things I've been doing with personally is to have that joy be in my gut, be in my center, because then my creativity is really flowing. And if I am not connecting to that, it's just dead. Anything I attempt is dead.
100%, which is another reason I've really checked out on the news cycle over the past, I don't know, long time, because if I'm walking around in a bad mood, I cannot create.
Fuck yeah. Yeah. That, if you don't mind, one song that keeps coming up, it's one of my favorite songs of all time. It's Tom Petty's Southern Accent. And in there's that line, I forget exactly what it is, but the Southerners call it something, the Yankees call it dumb. And there's sort of that generalization that the Northerners, the Yankees, myself and Mark here in California, look down upon the Southern life, the Southerner. And that the Southerner feels that. And you're talking about traveling around and meeting people. I guess I'm wondering if you've experienced that generalization in real life, or is that really a myth that some people continue to live by?
No, I think it's real. And I'll be honest, when I was a younger man and growing up, like part of my hesitancy to go, and I think this has probably a lot to do with people's hesitancy to go to different places, is I was a little bit worried about, people calling me a dumbass from Mississippi whenever I got to where I was going, or making fun of your accent or whatever. But once I got out into the world, started moving around and going different places and meeting different people, I very quickly realized that the South does not hold the patent on
dumb people.
On dumbasses, right?
That's real.
You're everywhere. And
sometimes I am one.
I'm not just a president, I'm a customer.
Oh. So, but as a writer, it's kind of infatuating to people too. When I go off and they get to meet a Mississippi writer, but just because of the history of it all, that's the first thing they want to talk about. Or it's always like the third question I get in a Q&A, like, what's it like to be a writer in Mississippi?
Sometimes it's hot.
I know. Read the book and let me know.
Yeah.
Wow. But it's all right. It's like, it's never bothered me. We think it's funny, too. I mean, there's two ways to look at it: get really pissed off about it or laugh at it.
Right. Well, like two people that I've come to mind instantly that just celebrate their Southern lifestyle is Tom Petty and Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
And I love Dolly Parton's talk about when she was growing up and she saw that woman walking the streets and people said, "Oh, you don't like her, she's trash." And Dolly thought, I want to grow up, I want to be trash.
That's right. That trash can be fun sometimes.
Yeah,
well, there's something uniquely American about that independent spirit, right? Of not having to put on some kind of look to be that evokes some sort of identity that we think we need to be, but at the same time, a cultural heritage of refinement, of what we would call gentlemanliness in the best sense of that word, right? Which is this idea that there are social graces that if we extend them to each other, it makes life sweeter. It helps us beat the heat, as it were.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And quite frankly, too, like my cigar habit has a lot to do with that very thing, because when I'm on the road now, I would go find the local cigar shop instead of the local bar, which is, they're both habits. But you can, there's conversations to be had, like sitting there. This has happened to me in New York. California, wherever, where it's just kind of like, you're just kind of sitting there chilling, with those mannerisms you kind of spoke of. And, Nobody's really thinking too hard about anything, which would do us all a lot of good, I think.
Well, without any spoilers, what kind of conversation do you think Burdine and Keel are having like a year after the book?
Whew.
Were they meeting somewhere after whatever happens to them? And is there some?
I think they both probably ran in the opposite direction of each other. Yeah, I think Burdine had it, and I think Keel probably. He's clearly changed for the rest of his life, and I think he's probably. I don't think they see each other for a while. They might lap back around, but I think after this, they got to get away. I think they walk away from each other, walk in opposite directions for a while, you know, not because of a dislike for one another, but because of what they have been through and shared together. If they sit around, that's all they're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And you got to move on.
I have a wish, and it's kind of a question, but it's also a wish. There's this idea of this dichotomy we set up between Yankees and Southerners and whatever polarizations you want to pick about our culture. And we have this holiday that's come under fire for some people that is all about how we break all that stuff down, which is the idea if we just sit down across from each other and share a meal and be grateful for the bounty of life, we start to find out things about each other that rehumanize it all and remind us of our community and our connection and our unity. Mm-hmm. And I think that's such a powerful thing for us all. And it feels like your books are a place to sit down and connect.
I mean, I think so. You know, I hope so. Like, I never set out with that intent.
Right.
But when I have someone say to me, like, I'll never look at this the same again because I read Desperation Road, or I read The Fighter, or I read Lay Your Armor Down. That's a tremendous compliment to me, because look, man, growing up a preacher's kid, I am not going to preach to anybody. And I sure as hell don't have some message to deliver. But I think if I'm setting my characters in motion and creating stories and giving them really human characteristics and making it as real as it can possibly feel, things will come across. And if it really makes you, one of the greatest compliments I think I ever got was a reviewer one time said, Michael Farris Smith grabs you by the back of the neck and makes you see the world around you. And I was flattered. I was floored when I saw that. I'm like, I don't know as a writer that you can ask for a better. For me as a writer, I don't know that I could ask for a better compliment or statement on the work. I hope people can settle into it and take a look at the world, both in that they both recognize and don't recognize, but are willing to try to understand.
Well, it's been truly a pleasure to sit and have this conversation with you, Michael. And I'm so grateful that I've been introduced to you. And now, as a result of that, I'm going to make myself more familiar with your work. I hope everybody else in the audience will take the time and energy to familiarize yourself with Michael's creativity, either whether that's through film or through music or through his books. We will, of course, provide all of the links to I hear he's going to take up sculpture and painter, but he's waiting until his 80s for that. Anyway, we do love this next question, and it can be a bit challenging. We ask every one of our guests this question, and it's designed to be a little bit uncomfortable. So just take a deep breath.
Well, but before we ask our final question, is there anything we haven't touched upon that you'd like to bring up?
Yes. Since this is the Moped Outlaws show, I do own a Vespa 300 GTS.
Oh, shit! Oh,
and how's it doing? How long has it been? Does it still operate? And
I got it in 22. It's badass, man. I'm on it today. I love it.
God damn it.
And are you in a helmet law state?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank God.
Oh, really? That's all right.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if I wasn't, I'd wear it anyway. And then I'd probably get in a fight with somebody for calling me a sissy for wearing it, you know? So we all wear it.
We've discovered in this conversation, your noodle is a very important human
a little
thing.
bit.
Yeah. And I'm sure your daughters and your wife would support that. But as audience members, we've also come to love that thinking machine you're carrying between your ears. I love the music. I'm looking forward to diving into the books, and I'm going to go watch a couple of those movies too. It's been a true pleasure. But as I said before, here it comes.
Okay.
This is the one.
All right.
Eminem or Foo Fighters?
Oh, shit.
Love it.
My God. That's the hardest question I'll get on book tour. Eminem.
Well, life's going to be easy now.
Gosh damn.
I'm
So
surprised.
I would say that it's very hard because I dig them both tremendously, and I think Grohl, the way he came out of that funk and just started his own thing and just lived with it and not been afraid to talk about it and this and that and other. Then Eminem ain't scared of nobody, and I do love that. You know what? I'm going to say Eminem just because I think it's harder to sustain doing what he does than what Grohl does. Like, he's got that badass band, and they can make records till they're 80. Eminem standing up there by himself, he's still doing it, still commanding an audience. I don't know. By a slither of a margin, I will say Eminem.
All right. It's beautifully put.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for being on this ride with us. It's been a true pleasure, and good luck with the book tour. Enjoy it. Enjoy meeting all those folks. And thanks again for coming on.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed it. Thanks.
Recording stopped.